Yes. For all of those that said, well, why don't I just get a job? Yes. I'm just loving you today. Okay. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, ooch, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. And, and that this is the first and great commandment. Ooh. And the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Ooch. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. Poop. This idea of love. Now, am I loving my neighbor as myself if I apply for a job? Yes. Now, you would say it'd take away from my availability of posting YouTube videos. I wouldn't be able to send those 2 to 3,000 emails today. In fact, I thought when I go to the senior center today, I would email an additional 100 email addresses. I wanted to know the employees of each and every news station, yes, newspaper, yes, and all the news magazines, because it seems that as much as I've emailed, yes, nobody in the media feels a compulsion to have to report the story. Poop! Now, let's say you're an employee. You know a fraud. Poop. You know a forgery. You know of the fraudulent use of the bail bond system, yes, to hold somebody in jail while at the same time refusing to acknowledge their innocence when you're trying to prove them guilty. Pooh! Now, when you don't admit the evidence, yes, you don't tell me what employee was receiving emails. Brennan and Quilcy. I did read that Trish and Trey are married and they're from Texas. The state of Texas is very close to me. They have a large highway system that goes from Mexico or close to Mexico, one of these southern nations. Yeah. And they were going to put in one of these huge highway systems. Yes. And they were going to rearrange the whole national highway system so as to facilitate commerce. Well, I found out we're closing the border. The whole south of the United States will not receive any persons into the United States. Well, obviously, if you close one border, you have to close them all. Not just the Southern California Mexico border. No, not just the Texas border. It's the Florida border. Every border is going to be shut down in this United States because people keep trying to get here. Now, why don't you get me all the border patrol stations? Yes, all along the southern border of the United States, from Florida all the way to California. Yes. And then all the border stations in the unconstitutional free zone. Yes. 100 miles in. Poop! Now, if you close this border, yes, why don't you close the other one? I don't think that you can close one border without closing them all, just so the president knows. Because you can't just say, well, this is the problem in Texas or Mexico or wherever the fuck they're from. You have to close them all. And then you have to close the other 100. Yes. The ones that are inside the borders, the ones inside. See, as American citizens, we will not be able to travel within our nation as soon as they close that border. It would be discriminatory. Yes. Let's say you're trying to sneak in the United States. Yes. You're like, oh, they closed this border. We can't get in. But then you walk an extra 150, 200 miles and that border's going, but no, you have to close that one. Then you say, well, since we went this far, let's walk another couple hundred miles. Then you try to get in there. No, that's closed. Then you get in. Ooch, somehow you did it. Poop. And then the other border stations are closed and you can't get into the other two-thirds of the United States of America. Now, your intention of illegally immigrating to the United States was to get into the inner part of the United States, not just that 100-mile border around the outside of the United States. Now, when we think about it, you start closing borders, you're going to have to close them all because there's no possible way we're going to let them in. We're not going to let them in. Now, oh my gosh, you seem to be upset about that.